Hi everyone! Today we're going to be talking about Stanley Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange from 1971. This is a movie that I cannot, in good conscience, recommend to everyone. It deals with some very severe themes. For example, the tagline of the movie is, "Being the adventures of a young man whose principal interests are rape, ultraviolence, and Beethoven." Now say what you want about Beethoven, but rape and ultraviolence are not for everyone, so if you find that you are not drawn to this type of entertainment, I strongly advise you to not watch this movie. If you do happen to find a story that features those themes appeal to you, then by all means, check out A Clockwork Orange, because it is a pretty significant film, and in a lot of ways, subject matter aside, it's a very beautiful film. Stanley Kubrick even went so far as to actually have Warner Brothers pull the film from movie theaters because of gang-related activity from this film. He did not want to be responsible for people getting hurt because of things they saw in the film, and he did not want people to glorify the actions of the main character in the film. It wasn't until around the time of his passing in 1999 that the film became commercially available in its uncut form in and around the year 2000. For the first pretty much 30 years of the film's existence, it was not available in a lot of countries around the world. The film is based on a novel by Anthony Burgess. The two are very similar. The film is actually a very faithful representation of the novel. There are some liberties taken with character morphing and or scenes or dialogue that maybe shifts between different characters, but for the most part, what you read is what you get in the film, with the exception of the final chapter. When Stanley Kubrick got the book, he had the US printing, and the US printing omitted the final chapter of the novel. If you're curious, I recommend reading one and then watching the other, and you'll see what I'm talking about. One of the more interesting aspects about the film and the novel is the use of language. The author, Anthony Burgess, actually invented a slang dialect. It's a combination of English and Russian slang. The name for it is Nadsat, and you can actually look it up online and find a glossary for all of the terms used in the book as well as in the film, because it's very easy to get lost in the slang, especially when the characters are just rolling it off their tongue so casually. The film follows a main character named Alex, played by Malcolm McDowell. Now, in the book, he's written to be between 15 and 17 years old. For the film, they increased his age to 19. Basically, Alex is a thug. He and his droogs just go around robbing, stealing, fighting, raping, and attacking innocent people for fun. And you would think, gee whiz, how is this the main character of a movie? How am I supposed to relate to this character? How am I supposed to connect with this character? I'm not a psychopath. Part of it is the story is actually a story of redemption. The story is also a commentary on society. I mean, compared to some of the news that you see and headlines that you see, it's pretty tame. But the fact that we're actually viewing it through a cinematic presentation, it's not something we're privy to. There's kind of a voyeuristic sense that's tied to the movie where it's like, oh gee, I want to look away but I don't want to look away. And the film kind of plays with that as well. It's safe in the sense that it is a film and it's scripted and it's a story and they are actors, but it's also kind of dangerous in the sense that maybe you shouldn't be watching this. And why are you actually watching this? So the film gives you a lot to think about from a character point of view, but also a personal point of view. I know for me, the thing that stuck out the most with this particular film, it was I had seen The Shining and I had seen Full Metal Jacket, but I had not yet really dug into his filmography, and this was kind of the film that brought him to the foreground for me as a filmmaker and inspired me to dig deeper. One of the aspects of the film that really spoke to me was the soundtrack, was the use of music, as well as Malcolm McDowell's performance, his character, and the character development throughout the story. One of the themes that I gravitated to when I first started watching it was the psychological elements. Again, the motivation of the character and the arc of the character really appealed to me, how he could start out as this horrible, wretched person and through the course of his experiences come to realize certain things about himself, and the lengths to which he goes throughout the film to overcome these behaviors is kind of interesting, and that's sort of the point of the whole movie. This film is definitely not for the faint of heart, but it is also not for people just looking for a popcorn movie. It has a lot of layers. I think only through repeated viewings do you really get to dig beneath the surface to see what the film is really about. Even the title, A Clockwork Orange, is kind of this abstract idea. It doesn't really make sense. It's built out of sort of that slang vernacular that they use throughout the film. A Clockwork Orange is a term that's used to refer to basically a reformed person. And in the case of the film, it deals with themes and techniques, basically brainwashing. And so the idea is to take something organic, like an orange, and make it mechanical, like a clock. So throughout the course of the film, the main character, he sacrifices his humanity in order to become something that is controllable and dependable and mechanical. He gives up his free will to try to fit into society. When I first discovered this movie and I was looking at the cast list, I noticed that David Prowse was in the film. Those of you who are not familiar with David Prowse, he is the actor slash bodybuilder who is in the Darth Vader suit in episode 4, 5, and 6 of the original Star Wars trilogy. Here you actually get to see him unmasked in all of his physical glory as the caretaker for Mr. Alexander near the end of the film. Technically speaking, the film utilizes a lot of low-budget techniques. The director of photography, John Alcott, actually used a lot of natural lighting for the film. They shot in a lot of practical locations. There are very few sets that were built for this film. So that just adds to the authenticity of it, and it gives it a more realistic sense. It's almost like you're watching a documentary about this main character and their journey. As I mentioned before, this film, it has a very, very heavy reputation. It is a very controversial film, and in a lot of ways, it was very ahead of its time. It takes place in the future, so technically this is considered a science fiction film. You can notice that through the architecture and even the use of the music and the soundtrack. A lot of it is Moog synthesizer music, which was not very common back in the late 60s and early 70s. It was kind of new technology that they were dabbling in and experimenting with, but that adds to the futuristic setting of the film. So that's about it for Clockwork Orange. Again, if you're not up to it, just pass this one by. If you are up to it, personally, again, speaking from a filmmaker point of view, I cannot recommend this movie enough, but it is not for everyone. So take that into consideration. Check out the trailer, read the book. If you're curious, the film is always there for you. Until next time, we'll see ya.